Hey, my name is James Nicholson and welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video, I've got some really in-depth data on how many landlords are quitting and the impact that's already having on the rental market. I'm going to tell you how many less rental properties are listed compared to just a few short years ago and why that's going to continue to hit rents very, very hard. Now, this is totally new data from a company called 20EA. They have analysed millions of property transactions in the UK. So this is a very interesting video if you want to know what's going on with the private rental sector. Now, if you're new around here and you haven't done already, do make sure you subscribe to the channel over there and hit that bell notification. We're on the way to 41,000 subscribers. Let's help us get ourselves there a little bit quicker. And let's get some more views on this video so people know exactly what's going on in the market. How do we do that, you ask? Simple. Smash like, tick or like, do something to that like button. That really helps us with the YouTube algorithm and helps the channel grow. So thanks to everyone that does that. So, what is going on? We've had a few videos over the last few months about the problem with landlords leaving the market. And those, in short, are that the private rental sector hasn't grown at all since 2016, as in the volume of properties available to rent. But what has changed since 2016 is our population has exploded. That means we now have a massive lack of rental properties. In fact, if you're in the unfortunate position that you're waiting for a social housing property, the waiting list at the moment stands at 1.3 million people. Yesterday, I made a video talking about immigration and the fact that the Home Office is almost begging landlords to open up their rental stock in order to house immigrants, because the cost of an immigrant in a hotel is £140 a day. That drops all the way down to £14 a day if they can get a landlord to take them on. The problem with that is that shrinks the rental market even more at a time where landlords are quitting in droves. So this data is from a property data company called 20EA. They really crunch numbers and understand what's going on in the market. And they're saying right now, in the first quarter that we've just completed, there are 15.6% of the properties listed for sale at the moment were rented out before. Now, great. Is that a problem? Maybe they get sold to landlords. That's a question when we've talked about this data before, people ask. And that's a fairly reasonable question. Well, the problem is no. We've got the answer in this data. And so out of all the properties sold that were previously rented, only 2.9% of those are re-let, meaning it's shrinking the property market. The rental market is continuing to shrink. How many ex-rental properties are for sale right now? A lot. 70,542 previously rented are listed on Rightmove for sale right now. Now, they're not all going to sell. And some of them might have a tenant in that could be a sitting tenant and moved across. But as we've seen already in the first quarter, only 2.9% of these are likely to get re-let. You've also got the government, as I said, asking landlords to give properties up in order to get immigration costs down. That is also going to shrink this market as well, which is not great. So rental stock, how much is that down? Well, rental stock is down since 2019 a lot. This is a crazy number. 22%. 22%. Now, we talked about 30% of landlords that have quit the market. And as we've said up here, some of those properties, they quit the market and then they do get resold and re-let. But not all of them. And that's meant a 22% drop. While the population is growing at a rapid rate, this is a problem. What does this mean? Well, we've also got the fact that rents are going up. And so rents went up on average 10% in the last year. That's way higher than inflation. It wasn't really talked about enough. Like, often you'll see the media constantly talking about inflation is high. They talk about things like petrol. They talk about things like supermarket food, and they are important. But your rental bill is your largest bill. And that, once it goes up, doesn't come back down. Petrol can go up. Petrol can come down. I'm seeing it coming down at the moment on the way to my route to work. But your rent is unlikely to come back down. And that is a problem for a lot of people. The average rent at the moment has jumped a lot, and it stands at £1,767. That is mental. And that, for a lot of people, is a huge chunk of their monthly outgoings going to just rent that they're never, ever going to get back. So this is a problem. And this is something that we've got to keep an eye on. Why are landlords leaving? Well, there's a few things. Section 24, that's the new tax rules that came in over the last few years and progressively have got worse for landlords, meaning they get taxed on the gross rent even if they're not making a profit. So maybe their mortgage has gone up, maybe they've had huge maintenance costs. Even if they're losing money, they still get a tax on their earnings. That's not like any other business. You don't have that for a plumber. You don't have that for someone running an e-commerce store. And you don't have someone that's self-employed or employed having that. It's only landlords that have that problem. That's not great. You've also got the Renters' Rights Bill, which a lot of landlords are worried about. It means that potentially they can't easily get their property back if they have a bad tenant that causes problems, doesn't pay the rent. They would have to go a longer route in order to get their property back. And that worries a lot of landlords, that it's going to be extra hassle and they're not likely to get the property back. So they're quitting because of that. You've also got the EPC stuff. And that's not great. We've just had a video last week where we talked about Victorian buildings potentially are going to be exempt. There's also a potential for grants on landlord properties that have lower than C EPCs, but it's still not enough. A lot of landlords are really worried about the problems and the costs of potentially spending 15 grand per property in order to get it as close to they can as a level C. That's not great. If you have a 60 grand house in Doncaster and you're forced to spend 15 grand, it's not a great investment. If you've got £1 million flat in London and you've got to spend 15 grand, it's not quite as bad. You're probably getting £5,000, £6,000, £7,000 rent on that property. So that is the difference. They're looking at blanketing all these legislative things onto landlords without much thought on that. And it shows this weekend that the government have realised that they do need landlords, in the fact that they're asking landlords in certain areas in the northwest, the east of England and the Midlands to home immigrants and reduce the costs for landlords. So look, this isn't a sob story for landlords. It is just what's going on in the market. And that's what I want to share with you, what is going on. Is landlords, being a landlord still good? Yes. It is good, but you need to know all the rules and all the legislation, and that's why it's important to stay up to date what's happening, and that's a reason to subscribe. What do you think about this exodus of landlords? It seems like it's continuing. Let me know in the comments below. Do smash like, do subscribe, and make sure you check out all the other videos as well on the channel, including this video right here.